Hello, wonderful people. Have you felt that you couldn't build anything of value or stick to a goal long term and berate yourself and insult yourself because you thought something was wrong with you? Here's a reminder, there's nothing wrong with you. You were just emotionally wounded by your parents. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Cahir. I'm taking you one step closer to self-love. And today we're exploring the healing of father and mother wounds, not by revisiting pain, but allowing a shift in perception. As A Course in Miracles says, sin is defined as lack of love, and every lack can be filled by love when we become willing, right? So, what do I mean, father and the mother wound? What is it, right? So, according to ACIM, all wounds are ultimately misperceptions from the belief in separation, right? So, behind every wound is the same core belief: someone took something from me, or someone failed to give me what I needed. But the Course reminds us the world we see merely reflects our internal frame of reference. So this means the pain we assign to our parents is a projection of an ancient belief in our own unworthiness, right? So it's not about blaming the person, right? It's about liberating them from believing the past has power. And I know I've suffered with that for many years, believing, I was giving them power, right? So let's bring in forgiveness. As the Course in Miracles describes, forgiveness is not saying the past is okay. It's saying what I thought happened is not true because only love is real, right? My parents acted from fear, not truth. If they withheld love, it's because they believed they lacked it. And what is not real cannot truly harm me. Right? Exactly from the Course. Forgiveness is the means by which we will remember, holding no one prisoner to guilt, we become free. Right, I've touched upon a little bit, or actually quite a bit, in my previous videos about the father and mother wound, but um, I'm looking at it through the lens of how it affected, like I said, divine masculine, divine feminine. So my father wound, I learned to be inconsistent, and this is, I think, the very, very, very damaging for me because I never stuck with anything for long term, so I didn't see any growth, right? So I just like learned helplessness. There's no point in trying because nothing I try works ever. you know, um, because when we were, like I mentioned, overweight, we Tata would also he would make us go to the gym, and I don't remember how long we went. Maybe max we'd go maybe 2 3 months. Um, and then a holiday would come, like Christmas or Easter, and then we just stop. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was happy. I'm like, oh, I don't get to go to the gym, but I didn't see. It was just showing how he was inconsistent, and then I became inconsistent with pretty much everything in my life. I never stuck to anything meaningful. I didn't even know I could build anything of value, honestly, until I built improv, mixed nuts. I know we're maybe as of this recording, we're not like mega superstars. Well, I mean, in Warsaw, I think we're quite known, and like I said, we got this amazing gig to play at a five-star hotel, and we also got accepted to an improv festival in Berlin. So, as improv groups go, I think that's pretty successful, right? But because I was consistent, right? Consistent, we always at least no once a week practice. We have long practices, and also for me, like sticking with making content. With I made, I think, as of this recording, probably around 200 reels, um, and we're growing in social media, hopefully on YouTube too. All right. Also, anger problems. So both my parents are very angry. I didn't realize this, but Tata was a whole different form of anger, like explosive rages for I don't know for anything. So I was very afraid of Tata growing up. I was, and it really pains me to know that I was afraid of my own father, and how many of my brothers and sisters were afraid of their dads, right? Um, and so it showed me to shrink, right? Not to emotionally express myself, to hide, be inauthentic. But my anger also manifested like I'd I'd yell at my brother. if even my friends, I would like sometimes explode on them, and I'd be, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, and I didn't know that, um, it wasn't of me, right? It was just with the rage that I was raised with. And the thing is, like, I would get angry, and they'd be like, oh, you're too sensitive, you don't have any control over your emotions. I'm like, well, look at yourself. In hindsight, I could say that, but even now, I've told this story that, they still get angry, like, over really small, like I told you, like, when, um, the, well, Tata is actually mild a bit, but he can still get angry, like when he said, like, "Oh, you jesteś kurwa familijny," like, you're not a family man because you don't want to go on a fucking trip with me. It's like, can you know, say in a calm way, like, "Hey, Cahir, I'd really appreciate if you go this trip with me a lot. Like, treat me with some goddamn respect." I didn't have that, and I probably won't have them from them, and I have to accept it. Also with the toxic shaming of eating. So like mama would say like nie obżeraj się, nie obżeraj się, and she was more constant because like I think I grew up in a very kind of typical environment, right? Like my tata would work long hours, come back home. So I was primarily raised by mama, but Tata still had his thing. Like I shared this story, when we were at the buffet and I put on white bread on my plate, and he's like, "Did you have to overdo it with the fucking bread?" You know, it still sticks with me because it's awful thing to say to somebody. I know the course teaches non-judgment, but I want to stick out for my brothers and sisters because I kind of laughed at this memory. I thought it's funny, but it's painful. It's painful, and it's not right. Especially there was a lot of projection, right? Because he couldn't control his diet. He's obese. He's looking at and trying to shame me into eating healthy. Why should you shame somebody to eat healthy instead of showing, hey, you want to be big and strong? Lead by example. That's the thing. My parents did not lead by example to say do this, and they do the opposite. All right. And then I became kind of the thing too. I hope I'm more aware of it. Why I say that, like, I don't know, I really wanted to help people. Like I said, I wanted to be like a life coach at 23. More power to me. But um, I wasn't say telling people to live their lives, but I was like, oh, why don't you do this? And I didn't, I didn't know how hard that advice would be, right? But I'm telling you about my healing journey, what has worked for me, right? That could never be taken away because I know who I was, how I would abandon myself, how I would toxic shame myself, and I don't do that anymore because I've experienced the atonement, right? Believing there is no separation, right? I'm as perfect as God created me. I believe it. You might say I'm a liar, whatever, but I know my experience, how horrendous my mind was, and how much it's so much more of a beautiful place to be in, right? Because I worked on it, and I want you to work on it too, right? And to identify what happened to me, right? Because I didn't want to look at my parents were emotionally neglectful, like emotionally abusive. I don't know what other way you would say. Like, did you have to overdo it with the fucking bread? Is that what kind? What would you call that? What would you call that? Except emotional abuse, right? And then my mother wound, right? So I learned to be like I said. I had this dream about uh, after I did the Course in Miracles, I had a dream about about Mama yelling at me, and I was holding my fist, and I said, "I will not abandon myself. I will not abandon myself. I will not abandon myself." And I see, oh, I must have at a very young age, because she would yell a lot as well, screaming, also swearing. Like I said, when she would try to teach us Polish, she would sit us down and say, and then we wouldn't focus, and she would slam on the table and be like, "Kurwa, skup się!" That kind of stuff. And I learned, I learned at a very young age to abandon myself. Right? I'm not, I'm the piece of garbage. It's my fault, right? Um, and so that developed into this horrendous tyrannical inner voice. And I was extremely, extremely unkind to myself. This is why I'm making my videos. I want to save you guys time. I want to save you guys from doing that, right? Because I was doing it, say, unconsciously, right? Because who in their right mind would want to hurt themselves, right? Who in their right mind would want to say such nasty words, right? I didn't see it for what it was, but yes, it was a mother wound. Of course it was, and it manifested in other romantic relationships where I didn't want to upset my partner or whatever. Well, partner is a strong word, but the person I was interacting with, let's say that. Okay. Maximizing failure. All right. So if I did anything incorrectly or not good enough, this is the thing I want to instill in you guys because, like I said, I love being productive. I love working on my own thing, but imperfect action. But like I with survivors of CPTSD, we learn like perfectionism, right? And it's like if something wasn't perfect, you'll always focus on like the mistakes, focus on like I said with my Polish, if I made one mistake, I'd be focusing on that, like focusing on the mistake, and then I learned, I can't, I won't, I won't try because I'll be criticized, right? And if I did make a mistake, like maximize the effort. I'll tell you guys a story that came up. So I, I wanted, I, ne- I never went. I wanted to go grocery shopping because I was like, I think 16 or 17. I have never really, of course, we'd go to like Sam's Club, not Sam's Club. We'd say Sam's Club. Go to Sam's Club. I would also like, help put the stuff in there, but I never like went grocery shopping just for myself, right? And plus, I was trying to be healthier because I saw like all this processed shit we were eating, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to Whole Foods. And I didn't know what to buy, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll buy vegetables, I'll buy tomatoes, and of course, everything in Whole Foods is like twice the price. And Mama sees like, oh, you bought tomatoes? We have fucking tomatoes. Ah! And like, maybe she didn't say that, but like I remember feeling very upset. Like yeah, I made a mistake. I paid for overpriced tomatoes, but can you say it in a gentle way, gentle correction? Like, oh, son, we have tomatoes. Like, make it, make sure so we don't have to buy tomatoes or something like that. But I got the exact opposite, right? And then um, I said like this rejection sensitivity. Because I instilled this belief I'm not good with girls, which fucking sucks as a guy to believe that. Even though I would say I'm quite attractive. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I do work on my body and I've been complimented on my body, but that's beside the point. But I didn't believe that for many years. Um, I'll tell this story again now because it's um, I got rejected by this girl, Jenny, and she said, I smell, right? Like, oh, you should take a shower. And as a 14-year-old, that fucking sucks. You know what I'm gonna say? And I remember feeling really distraught and like super sad because of course, you like a girl and she tells you to fucking take a shower. It sucks, you know. And then Mama sees that I'm upset and she's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she's like, "Is it about a boy or a girl?" I told you guys, and I lied. I said, "Oh, it's a boy," and she knew I was lying, because I didn't feel safe to tell her anything. Probably from whatever. And it's like, "You're not good with girls, aren't you?" I don't know how many times I'll have to tell that memory. Like, it's one of those like pivotal things. I've worked on it, of course, but I you know I just wish she would have healed me, helped me, regulate my emotions. Be like, hey, it's okay, Cahir. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry. Or anything. Instead of just like kind of kicking me when I'm down, man. And then I learned to do that. And I did that for many years. If a failure, quote unquote, rejection happened, and be like, oh, I'm not good with girls. There's no point in trying. And that sucks. That sucks, man, because that all it does is disempower us, and I don't want us to be disempowered anymore, right? It took me, many years. I just thought like, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing, it's just a bad memory, but no, it's a memory that forms a core belief about yourself, man. That's the mother wound, like I said, and um, being a people pleaser, right? Being hypersensitive of other people's emotions. Be like, oh, I don't want to upset you. I'm going to conform because that's what I did. Self-abandon. I abandoned myself to conform, to appease, to feel safe. Right? I don't want that for us. The creator doesn't want that for us, man. right? And I can see they had their own, unhealed trauma. Right? Like I said, like I think Poland is collectively traumatized, right? Thinking about, World War II, then socialism, and then all that stuff like that's passed down generationally. I hope, no, I know I'm breaking this curse, right? This generational trauma, because I had to really dive deep within myself to heal it. you know, this is why I'm also making this channel, because like we say, oh, just love yourself. But if you have this huge like baggage on your shoulders, I did until the Course of Miracles. That's why I'm a big proponent of it, right? Because it's changed my life, right? Like Holy Spirit gave me that dream. And I know I probably made a similar video, but this is like, I want to make it better, make it more clear, to maybe you're dealing with something like that and you just don't know about it. You just don't know about it because it's really, it's tough. It's tough emotionally because, I understand they did their best. I know they did. I know they did. I don't want to seem that they're only negative people. They raised me the best they could. I know. But, I had a tyrannical voice, an awful voice. You know, I'm getting emotional talking about it. It's just like, I don't want that for anybody. I don't want that for you because you're a blessed son of God. You know, you deserve so much more. All right. Um, so I'm going to offer a prayer for anybody that's dealing with something like this. Holy Spirit, help me see my father and my mother as you see them. Help me release the belief that love was ever withheld. Let me remember that only love is real and everything else is a call for love. All right, let that light in. I love you guys so much. We're all in this together. We're all in this together, all right? Remember, you are not healing alone. The Holy Spirit is doing this with you. The past has no power over the present unless you give it power. And with your willingness, every wound becomes a doorway into freedom, peace, and remembrance of who you truly are. All right, may the Holy Spirit light up your path wherever it takes you. All right, and take care.